And I'm going to turn on my video for just a sec and say hi so you know who you're talking to. So hello, everybody. All right, welcome. We have a large group here of CDFA employees, and you are here because you've been designated as a trainer in your district. And so we'll be showing you a demo of the CalTrap administrator application. It's also known as the desktop app. And then we'll have a Q&A session and talk about your training efforts in your districts. So let me get started. So on the agenda, we are planning a 2-hour webinar. It may take a little bit less time, but we're allowing enough time for you guys to ask enough questions and feel comfortable. The purpose is for this to be a train the trainer session. And we are focusing on fruit fly detection only. There may be some other attendees listening in, and they're welcome to answer questions, but just know that our focus is about deploying CalTrap statewide and what the trainers need to know to get training going in their districts. So today we are looking at the administrator app only, not the iPad app, although we will touch a little bit on it so that you understand the relationship between the two apps. And we will introduce our CalTrap implementation team, so you know who's in the background supporting you. We'll do a live demo that's based on LA County, and then we'll talk about training in your region, and we'll do a Q&A. So my intention is to, as we go through the demo, present chunks of information such as how to create a survey, and then stop and ask for questions on that topic so that we can get a good round of discussion and make sure everyone is feeling comfortable before we move on. So we do have just a few rules that we're asking everyone to abide by during this session. We are recording it and we will post it to caltrapinfo.com. Everyone is muted at the beginning. You can unmute yourself if you need to ask a question, or it's preferred that you type your question into the chat feature. And Yvonne will be capturing those. And here's a good point to introduce Yvonne as well. I'm sure everybody knows her, Yvonne Pell. We are training and working on this training effort together. So welcome, Yvonne. And if you could use the raised hand feature if you have typed in a question and it has not been addressed. Okay, so just to clarify where we're at, we are training on the administrator app. CalTrap has two components: the administrator app, which has been called the desktop app for a long time, but this is the browser-based application, and we use it to maintain all of our trapping data, such as surveys and routes and motor pool, and what users can look at your county data and interact with it, and run reports and management functions. So in January, we'll be scheduling training for you on the Trapper app, which is the iPad app that most people think of when they say CalTrap. So that's the app used to service traps in the field. So we'll be living here today. And I'm going to hand it over to Yvonne for just a minute or two to give you a view of the Trapper app, since a lot of people are curious, and then we'll go back to the administrator app and continue the training. So
Okay,
Yvonne,
thanks, Bonnie.
Let me unshare.
Okay.
Yvonne's going to share her desktop.
Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so what we're looking at here, like Bonnie mentioned, this is the CalTrap mobile application. You can see on the left-hand side, we have some different buttons here. We have a search bar up top. We can search for hosts or addresses. We have our start and end button. I don't know if you can see that when I click on it, but that's where the trapper will start and end their workday. They can record their odometer. There's a comments section if they need to, type in any notes from the day. And then there's an accuracy statement as well. And if we pull up the trapping dashboard, this will give us an overview of our route. This route is 19-01 in LA County. There's a section here for the trapper bulletin. So the supervisor or lead can write in notes for the trapper, just reminders or, just tips or points they want to point out, start deploying these traps or whatever. And then here's an overview of our books in the route and the traps that are needing service. You can open each book. You can also toggle down to the grid level as well. And then here is our manage hosts. We can add or modify hosts. There's also a host advisory button. We can select a pest type and find hosts in our location where we want to maybe place traps or do relocations. And we can also manage our sites, so we can create and modify single sites or site groups. And the last button, this is our trap shelf. I don't have any traps here right now, but this is where our traps will sit when we are doing a relocation so that we can keep all of the data together. And then looking at the map itself, you'll see these different colored icons. The triangles are Jackson trap sites and the squares are our McPhail traps. The green means the traps are on time. The orange are due for servicing. And there's a few other features as well. You can see these blue lines here for some of our merged or shared subgrids. And that's kind of an overview of a look at the mobile trapping application.
Thank you, Yvonne. I'm
Sure.
going to start sharing here. Okay. Let's introduce our implementation team. As I mentioned, these are the folks that are supporting you as you go out and do your training. We have Max Regis from LA County. He's the Deputy Director, sorry, Max, of Agricultural.
Bonnie, I can't see your screen.
What do you see?
Just the participant list right now. There we go.
How's that?
I can see now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll start over then. So our team consists of Max Regis from LA County. He's the Deputy Director of Agricultural Commissioner Weights and Measures. We have Qua Lam from LA County. He's the Deputy Ag Commissioner and Sealer. And Ray Leclerc from CDFA. He's the Branch Chief of PDP. We have Colleen Murphy from CDFA. She's the EGIS Manager. Yvonne Fell, who just gave us our iPad demo, from CDFA, a Senior Environmental Scientist and CalTrap Advisor. And we have newly added Anna Nestor, and welcome Anna. With CDFA, she's an Environmental Scientist and CalTrap Advisor. And let me correct myself, she's not new to CDFA, but new to the CalTrap team. Mauricio Lucero from LA County is a GIS analyst, and he's our user accounts manager. We'll be working with him quite a bit as we deploy statewide. Roger Flores with LA County is a GIS analyst and county data manager, as well as a developer. And then myself helping as an implementation coordinator through LA County. So let's start digging into the CalTrap Administrator app. I have it pulled up on Chrome. It works best on Chrome. We've tested it on other browsers and it does work on other browsers, but Chrome is preferred. You can also open it up on your iPad in a Safari session, it's just a little bit harder to get around. So desktop with a mouse is easier for this particular app. Okay, so in general, and let me just say, if you have seen all the training videos on caltrapinfo.com, this is almost identical to what you've seen on the training videos. The difference is we can stop and take questions and in real time resolve any questions or concerns that you have. So just in looking at the desktop app, here's where you'll go to sign out. Here's some tool label functions. You can give yourself a little more map space. You can zoom in and out on the map. And here are the tabs that you're going to be using, that supervisors will use to create the data. So the reason we had Yvonne show you the iPad first, what the trapper will be needing is to give some context as to what we're doing in this administrator app to support all of the trap servicing. So here is where we're creating surveys. Get the tool labels back on. We're creating and managing routes. We're merging and unmerging grids and subgrids as needed for trapping density. We can manage sites here and we can manage hosts. We cannot service traps from this application, but we can create and manage all of the support data for trap servicing. So in addition to data creation, we can assign routes and vehicles to our staff, and we can control users who want access to our particular county's viewer. And let me state that each county will have its own viewer for the administrator app. And some users can have access to multiple counties depending on their role in the organization, but it will be a separate URL that will be sent to each county to begin working with CalTrap administrator. Okay, so back down on these tabs, the navigation tab is some basic map navigation, panning, zooming, things you can do with your mouse as well. At some point in the future, we would like to add some custom route navigation under this tab, but that's a little bit of a ways off. So right now it's just basic map navigation. We also have a reporting tab where you can run the weekly trapping report, the monthly activity report, also known as Report 1, and the daily trapping report, also known as the daily trapping summary. This ties into the daily trapping summary that trappers submit from their iPads when they close out their day. And this flat file here needs a little bit better label, but this is the IFAS, the USDA file that you can create and download and then upload to IFAS. All right, a little bit more general working with the map. This arrow here shows us our map data layers. Each of these is a data layer, and you can turn them on and off. Right now, I'll just show you the outline of a station. If we turn the station layer off, the station layer is gone. Again, here's a grid layer.
You can. Oh, I think the ports are the problem.
Yeah.
And
Oh, someone's not muted. Thanks. So working with layers is very easy. You can customize the look of what you want to see on the map by turning things on and off. You can also use a transparency slider on some of them. We might need someone to mute themselves because we've got a little bit of reverb going. But let me turn the stations layer back on. I'm going to leave subgrids off right now because we have a number of different subgrid arrays represented. It could get a little cluttered. I'm going to zoom out and we'll just look at the whole county. So LA County has 5 different stations: north, east, central, south, and west. As we know, a number of the smaller counties may not have separate stations. You may just see one red outline around the whole county. That's fine. The behavior will be the same. So when you're working with data layers, some layers are only visible as you zoom in to a certain extent. Here we can more easily see a route, and we can see the grids and the grid names. We can continue zooming in. And we'll start to see trapping sites. So these are the trapping sites outlined in yellow. They normally follow the parcel line, and we do receive parcel data from county assessors. As we continue zooming in, we can see hosts on sites. A little bit more data. We can see the dog layer for sites that have dogs present. And here's a site with red lines over it. That means the permission to trap here has been denied. So we will not be placing traps here. And we'll see a little bit of that as we work with sites. Okay, I'll open it up to questions at this point. Do we have any questions? Is someone speaking? You may still be on mute. Or you can type a question. Okay, if no questions, I'll continue on. So we were just working with layers. We can close the layers by clicking the X here. So let's start in with creating a survey. We'll click Create Survey here under the Surveys tab, and we'll select a method. One note about the platform that we're using for this webinar, MS Teams, it doesn't always show the drop-down values. Yvonne, can you see drop-down values from where I'm selecting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can see them.
All right. So we can choose from a survey that covers the whole county, one that covers one station, or one or more grids. At this point, we're creating one that covers the whole county. And when I selected that, the whole county got highlighted. I'm going to click Next. So when we create an individual survey, it has to be assigned to a survey set. Well, a survey set is exactly that. It's a group of individual surveys. For example, a fruit fly survey set could have multiple individual fruit fly surveys in it. We already have some test data in here. So I will, actually, let's create a new one. So I train the trainer fruit fly set. And you can see that we have multiple subgrid arrays that we can use for different pest programs. We'll just go with Quince and save that. So we have our survey set, and in here is details about the individual surveys that are in our set. Right now it's blank because we just created it. So we click Next to create an individual survey. And we'll do a MedFly survey. Start date has a calendar apparatus to pick from. We'll start early spring. And we'll end it in September. As we showed on the video, you can also go out quite a ways into the future if you want to create a semi-permanent survey. We'll just make ours for this season. And then we'll select our pest type, which will be the MedFly. Once we select the pest type, CalTrap has some information that it has derived about the pest, that we would be using a Jackson trap and 1 trap per subgrid, and we're using quints. It also has some defaults for inspection frequency, 14 days, a 28-day replacement, and a 42-day reload. All of these can be overridden by a county. You can select different days. You can type over it. And these defaults will be saved. So I'm going to create this survey. And it doesn't change anything on the map, but it has been created. Okay. Any questions about surveys at this point? I did want to mention that when I had the pest type values shown, there are a couple of pest types that are new to our list. We've mentioned that we're training on fruit fly detection only. We also have other pests in there, such as ACP and GWIS, that we have tested, but we'd also like to hear your feedback as you train and have experience with this in counties that trap those pests a little bit more. So those newer pests, we do want to have a feedback loop with you. Okay, I think that's it for surveys. Let's go ahead and take a look at assigning routes. So we click on Manage Routes in the Surveys tab, and let's create a route. You'll see that some routes are already created here, these outlines, and you can tell we are in a bit of a sandbox area for testing and training. Counties won't look like this or have these same route names, but just so you know, as you get ready to train, you will have access to viewers where you can play around and test things out so that you get a comfort level with your mastery of all this information. So we are in this staging area, but let's go ahead and create a route. CalTrap wants a route name. So the naming convention always starts with your county number, or if you're a CDFA county, the county ID. We happen to be in LA. So the number and a dash. And the reason is once this is deployed statewide, so many counties have named their routes Route 1 or Route A. And so we need a way to distinguish all the Route 1s from each other. But Route 99. And we're going to assign it in the West station. And we're going to use our train the trainer fruit fly set. So once we entered that data, CalTrap then displayed our books for assignment in the route. So let me zoom in a bit. And route creation is fun. You essentially just click on the book that you want to assign and click the grid that's assigned to that book. Each book is 1 day, and right now you see the black highlight around book 1. So any grid that we click will be colored purple for book 1. If you accidentally clicked something and you don't want it in that book, click it again and it's deselected. So you can continue clicking for each book. Also, if you only have 4 books in a week, a 4-day trapping week, or you start on a Tuesday instead of a Monday, this is all flexible. If you don't assign a book, CalTrap ignores it. So you're not required to use all 5 books. But let me add some extra grids in here. And scrolling down, there's an area called the Trapper Bulletin. So this is a message you can give to the trapper that will show on their iPad when they open their route. So it's specific to this route. So, click Save. CalTrap confirms
It's
it,
coming.
and now
It's just that. Yeah, it's just a lacking of the
hello?
internet. Yeah.
Mohammed? Oh, you are muted. I'm sorry, Mohammed. I think someone else muted themselves. We're good. Let me take a moment here. Okay, I apologize. I didn't see the chat. Excuse me, the chats from before. So because we finished creating a route, I'll just take the time to look at surveys here. Can survey sets be associated? Piggybacked on fruit fly survey rather than run independently.
Bonnie, Qua's been answering some of the
Oh,
questions.
okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just want to make sure I'm current. Dave has his hand raised. Dave, is this about routes or surveys? Or your questions?
You just hadn't addressed some of the questions.
Gotcha.
Uh,
Okay.
Forgot to put it down after class started.
Okay. I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you, but it sounds like you're taken care of there.
Mask on.
Right on. Okay. Let me get back to routes. Okay, so we just finished creating a route and it's now displayed. Let me get back to the manage route display. Let's say because I clicked some extra grids here, I want to modify it. Let me select the route. First, the set that our route is part of, and then CalTrap knows that we just created Route 99 within that set. So I'm going to click on that set, and now, sorry, click Next. Now it's the same screen with the book assignments and the Trapper Bulletin. And so I want to get rid of some of those extra grids on book 5. I just deselect them and save. And you see the new route outline on the map. But this route isn't really useful until we assign it to a trapper. So I'm going to move over to the Assignment tab and click on Assign Route. And so below here is a list of routes that have already been created. Here's Route 99 that we just created. So let's assign it. We can search for a name, or we can scroll through and find a single name. We can assign all of our staff to this route. We can unassign everybody. So it's super flexible. For the moment, I'll just assign it to myself. Click Save. And now we see in the list that the route has been assigned. Okay, I'm going to switch back to routes and show you how to deactivate a route. So deactivation is the same as deletion. However, we do keep the data for historical purposes. But when you deactivate a route, you will no longer see the route on the map. You can no longer interact with it. A trapper can no longer interact with it. So we'll pick our survey set and our route and attempt to deactivate it. But in this case, CalTrap knows that a trapper is still assigned to this route. So we have to unassign them if we want to delete this. Back to assignment, select our route, and we can click none. It's an easy way to unassign everything. We'll save that. Back to managing routes. We can now deactivate our route. And it's gone. Okay, any questions on routes? Okay. Looks like we're good with routes. I'm just checking my notes here to make sure I've covered everything.
Hey, Mike,
Okay.
I think Dave Newstead has a question.
Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Thanks, Claude. For deactivating a route, I mean, what would be the circumstances if you deactivate a route? Are you talking about, like, if you have a seasonal route, you would deactivate it at the end?
Dave, my apologies. I'm having a terrible time hearing you. But I think I heard, what is the purpose of deactivating a route?
Well, I said, what are the, just trying to make sure that I understand. Talking about deactivating something a season is over, and something that wasn't year round, you deactivate it for the season, and then would the information about that route?
Dave, I'm so sorry. Would you be able to type it into a chat?
Sure.
I will say that deactivating a route does come in handy in the beginning when you're learning the software, you're trying to figure out the best way to cover your county and express that through CalTrap. And you may just deactivate and start new, creating a new route, depending on what your needs are. So what I'll do to keep things going, I will move on to merging and unmerging grids and subgrids. And Dave will come back to your question, if that's okay. Okay, so we're going to look at merging grids together for places where you have untrappable grids and you need to spread the trapping density between 2 or more grids. It's super easy to do that. After you click on Manage Grids, click on Merge Grids, and CalTrap wants you to indicate that you're about to click on a point on the map. So we click Select a Grid, and we start here. So CalTrap automatically zooms in to where we can see what we're working with. And we see that our selected grid is now on display here. And so we can continue to select grids to merge together. We're selecting adjacent grids. And that's a little too much, so I'm going to deselect that. So it's pretty easy to do this. So now you see the outline of 3 grids merged together that will share the trapping density between them. So obviously this is just a training example, but we now have our grids merged successfully. And because we have different data layers turned on, the station layer is kind of overlaying this merged grid layer at the moment. But just to show you how we can work with that, we'll turn off the station layer. And now we see our merged grids entirely. Okay, if we want to modify a set of merged grids, we click Select Merged Grid, and anywhere in this merged set, and then deselect what we want to remove or select something to add. Oops. Let me go back. We've deselected, and the 2 grids that are left are displayed here. We'll click Save, and now the outline has changed. If you want to completely unmerge and just get rid of this merge altogether, click Select Merged Grid and click anywhere inside here and click Unmerge. And it's gone. So it's very, very similar process for subgrids. To merge subgrids, just select a subgrid. Let's zoom in. Okay, and we can continue to select subgrids for merging. They're displayed here. We click Save. And we should see the new outline. Oh, hang on. I have the subgrids layer turned off. That's why we didn't see the merge. So I turned the subgrids layer back on. Now you can see the 3 subgrids that we have merged. Same thing if you want to modify it. Click Select Merge Subgrid. Click anywhere inside the merged subgrids. And then you can deselect and reselect. And you'll see the new outline. To completely unmerge them, click anywhere inside and click Unmerge. And it's gone. Okay. Yes.
Bonnie, this is Thomas. I just have a question as far as the merging. So you can merge between the subgrid and merge between the grids. Can you merge different subgrid with, well, can you merge the subgrid from the different grid?
No, that's a great question. Yeah, so
Okay.
you can only merge subgrids within a grid, a single
Okay.
grid. Yes.
So you can't do that type of combination.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I see that Kwa has answered one of David's questions, but David, you have a question on, is the merged grid feature for rural trapping? In urban trapping, we may merge quints, but I can't think of a situation in which we merge grids. Yes, my best example would be Lake Tahoe. So there are some completely untrappable grids, and we can merge those with others. Does that answer your question, David?
I guess so. So you're treating them as though they were quints in that circumstance. We're just saying it's such a low density of hosts.
I think I heard what you said, and I think the answer is yes. Okay, thanks. Good question. So I'm going to go ahead. Are there any other questions on grids or subgrids? Okay, I will move on to managing sites. We're clicking here under the surveys tab. And just because you can see with the multiple subgrid data layers here, it does get a little cluttered visually. So I do go back and turn off the subgrid layers to do some work. Okay, so let me get back to manage sites. And you can see when you click on manage sites, you can create a single site, modify a single site. You can also deactivate a site within the modify feature. I'll show you that. You can create a site group, and a site group, a good example would be a mobile home park that is one parcel, but has multiple trapping sites within the parcel. You can also modify and deactivate a site group. I'm going to demonstrate creating a single site. So let's zoom in to where we can see parcels. And I'm going to tap select parcel, and then I'm going to select this big parcel here. You'll see a majority of the time CalTrap knows the address. In this particular instance, it does not. We're going to name the site. And well, we'll say this is residential. And CalTrap wants to know if we have permission to trap on this site. For the first time around, we'll say that permission is given. Once we say that, CalTrap wants to know who gave us the permission. So depending on how the counties document it, they may say owner, they may say resident, or they may have a person's name. Then that person's contact information, which is optional. Email is optional also. We're going to say this site has a dog. It is viable for trapping. That'll come up a little bit later. Notes about the site. A question that Dave Neustadt brought up is the idea of pre-notifying owners about the intention to trap. So we have sort of a pending permission given situation. That could be noted here if that's how counties want to communicate to each other. But other notes that would be more typical is all puppy front gate. Access notes might be a gate code getting into the community. Other notes that trappers and supervisors want to communicate to each other. We'll click save. And now we have a new trapping site in yellow. with a dog icon. Let's say we want to modify that site. CalTrap wants us to select the site and then click on the map. So now we have the site we want to modify. And we're going to say that permission was denied. And there's no dog. When we click save, we'll see the dog icon has disappeared, and now we have the red lines over our trapping site, so we cannot trap here. If you want to remove a site entirely, which is deactivating, and as we mentioned earlier, it's the same as deleting, but we do keep the data for historical purposes. But to do that, we click on Modify Site, and then we click the site on the map. Scrolling down, we would uncheck the Is Viable feature and click Save. And now you see it's just been completely removed from the trapping site layer. There is no color indicator, and it's treated like a regular non-trapping parcel. Okay, are there any questions about sites? Everyone looks good for the moment. Okay, let's take a look at hosts. We're going to click on Manage Hosts, and as you can see, we were already zoomed in at a level where we could see hosts. Going to zoom out a bit. Just looking for a property with multiple hosts. Okay. We'll use this one. So when we click on that site, CalTrap says we have one site with 4 hosts. We've already looked at the site, but if we click on this arrow, we'll see trapping site information such as the address. Let me go back, and we're going to click on this arrow for the 4 hosts. When we do that, we'll see the 4 hosts displayed separately with another arrow for more information. So if we click on this loquat, which is highlighted here, we see the data that was provided at the time of data conversion and data we know about this host already. It's a loquat, it's active, it has some behind the scenes IDs that CalTrap uses, and it's in the category of common fruit trees. I'm going to X out of here, and we'll be back at the 4 hosts. So you can see as I scroll through, the map changes. The indicator here changes as I go from tree to tree to give the exact location. All right, so I'm going to click on Manage Hosts again because we're going to add a host to this property. We click on Add New Host Location. And we're going to click on a tree on the property. If we need to confirm the site that we're adding the host to, we can show a small bit of details on the site, the address. We can hide that. Continuing on. So when it comes to hosts, we have such a large number of hosts that the host types have been categorized so that trappers in the field don't have to spend so much time scrolling through hundreds of host tree types. So we select a category first, and hopefully everybody can see the drop-down values. We have categories. Okay, great. Berries, common fruit trees, less common fruit trees, nut trees, ornamental trees, structures such as fences, and vegetables. So let's look at the common fruit trees. Once we've selected that, we'll select a type within that category, and you'll see a list of common fruit trees. We can do a mandarin orange here. And once we click save, we'll see the new host here in orange. It's just as easy to modify a host. We tell CalTrap where we're about to click. And you see the same display for modifying as you did for adding. So we'll keep it in common fruit trees, but we're going to turn it into a lime. And you'll see that it changed to a green color for lime. Let's just go ahead and delete that host. So to do that, we use the Modify Host button. Click Locate Existing Host. Click on the host. And down here is a Deactivate Host function. So we just click Deactivate and save. And the host is gone. Okay, any questions about working with hosts? All right, looks like Quaz got it handled. Also, just so everyone knows, during this webinar, we are capturing all these questions. And if there is anything that's not answered or you don't feel comfortable 100% with the answer, we will research everything and add these items to our user guide so that everyone has all the resources they need to do their training. All right, so we have reviewed all of the support data that will help the trapper out in the field. Let's take a look at the motor pool. So we're clicking on Manage Vehicles, and you'll see that you can add a vehicle, assign it, modify it, or remove it. This is all pretty straightforward. Let's add a vehicle. A vehicle ID is what each county, whatever mnemonic the county uses for vehicle IDs. We'll just call this one number 25. And it's a Ford F-150. It's a 2020, and it's a starting odometer of 20,000. So you can assign the vehicle to a station. If there's only one station in the county, the display will look a little different. So now we've added a vehicle. Let's go ahead and modify it. And when you click Modify, you'll see the existing vehicles in your motor pool. Here's the one that we just added. So let's go ahead and modify it. The license plate changed. And the odometer is actually 30,000. Oh, okay. So this is an issue that has been reported to our developer, and this is actually incorrect. That when we go to modify a vehicle, it gets a little stuck. So this has actually already been fixed, but not deployed to this staging area where I'm working. So in the future, you should be able to click Save and modify your vehicle, and it'll show up in your motor pool just fine. But for right now, I'll cancel. But I will show how to assign a vehicle to a staff member. This is the vehicle we just created. You can use a search box to search for somebody's name. You can leave it unassigned, or you can assign it. At this point, only one staff member can be assigned to a vehicle, but we do have enhancements upcoming that will allow multiple staff members to be assigned to a vehicle. And that'll help with the way that some counties work on a daily basis, changing out vehicles. Also a note about assigning vehicles. If a trapper has to switch vehicles for any reason during the day, the supervisor should come into this administrator app and reassign the vehicle. It's not a deal breaker if that doesn't happen. The trapper can make notes in their daily trapping summary, but it's a lot more accurate and precise to change the vehicle assignment when it happens, because CalTrap is keeping track of odometer changes and all of that. So that's something to be aware of on assignments. Let me go back and show you how to remove a vehicle from the motor pool. Click on the one that we just created and assigned, and it says it's currently assigned. Are you sure you want to remove it? And in this case, we can say yes. We don't have to go back and unassign it. And it goes ahead and removes the vehicle. So it's no longer in the list. All right, any questions about vehicles? Okay, so I have been kind of moving forward, and I see that the questions are about other topics. Quad, did you want me to open it up to a Q&A at this moment or continue on?
I would say continue on. A lot of the questions that people are asking, I think, are confusing the administrator app versus the iPad application for CalTrap. I just want to let folks know that the logic built in for what the trappers see and what for the administrator sees are completely different. There are rules that apply to trapping that really won't, that is not needed for the administrator app because we are not servicing or deploying any traps. The administrator version is the initial part for us to kind of control and monitor how surveys, routes, and things are created that the trapper will not be making any adjustments to. So yeah, two very different sets of questions, but yeah, but I think they're all valid questions and good for me to address. But I would say let's keep continuing with what you're doing, Bonnie, so that we're staying on track.
Thank you, Kwa. And I appreciate everybody's questions, and there's good stuff being asked here. So let me move on. I'll do reporting, and then I'm saving manage users for the last thing because it's a little bit more complicated. But let me just show you reporting. We have the weekly trapping report. In order to run a report, we won't get much data right now because, as I said earlier, we're working in this sandbox area and we don't have traps deployed out in the field. So I'll just kind of show you how you would run a report, but it's quite simple. So we click a start date, and it usually goes back a week. So we'll keep December 14th as our start date. We'll keep December 21st as our end date. And let's see if Bonnie Garvey did any work. Up here it says it's thinking. Report generated successfully. Download report file. I don't know if you can see the new window that opened, but it shows the weekly trapping report and what Bonnie Garvey did. She wasn't very productive, but it does have the ending mileage and starting mileage as we talked about, CalTrap retaining that and the hours. Okay, that's the weekly trapping report. The monthly activity report is operates the same. We select the year and the month and the station. And when we go to download, it opens a new window. Not much here on report 1, but that's a view of what it looks like. Let's run the daily trapping report for yesterday. And this says that this staff member has no work logged for yesterday, so we won't see any data. If we attempt to generate the report, it says it needs work to be done. So I'm going to cancel out of this, but you understand that it would open up a new tab. It would show the daily trapping summary, and you would be able to download it and print it from there. I'm going to cancel out, and I'll just show you the flat file, which is the IFAS file. I'll go with the default date. Okay, that did not open up a new tab, most likely because there's not data, but I'll confirm that in the user guide. So we're going to say done for here. And that's pretty much the basics of reporting. Do we have any questions on reporting? Okay.
Hey, Bonnie.
Uh-huh.
I think your flat files opened up. They downloaded as Excel files at the bottom there. It looks like.
Oh, thank you. So that's what it looks like formatted for IFAS, but with no data. The tab says flat file records. Thanks for noticing that. Okay. Any other questions about reporting? Okay. Let's take a look at this query real quickly. Clicking on query, this is actually a very powerful tool for finding data inside the CalTrap database. But it could take a separate webinar or training session to really go through all of its capabilities. But let's say we want to search trapping sites as our data source, and we want to use the entire map area. There are different data fields that we can search by. The easiest would be something like address, contains, and let's say we want to look for Valley Boulevard, anything that has valley in it. There's also options to add conditions and subclauses, and this gets into a Power Query user territory, but if you're interested in that, it's a lot of fun to dig into. So let's see what happens when we type search. Okay, we have 714 trapping sites in LA County that have valley in the address. So that's a lot of results. But you know, if we click on one of them, it automatically zooms to that trapping site. So that's a good way if you're sitting at your desktop to be able to locate a trapping site quickly if you're talking to a trapper in the field. So like I said, the query has many other features, and we can dig into that a little bit in a separate webinar. Okay. Let me just check for questions here. Okay. The last big part of setting up data for the county is managing the users. So it's a little complicated for getting users up and running, but once you do it once or twice, it becomes a lot easier. So in essence, every user that needs access to CalTrap first has to request an ArcGIS account. And the reason for that is because ArcGIS is part of the platform that CalTrap is built on. So a user requests access to ArcGIS, just like all of you did prior to attending this webinar, and then you received instructions and continued on. So after requesting an ArcGIS account, each user then must request access to CalTrap. So it's a two-step process. Get the ArcGIS account and then get the URL for the specific county or counties that the user wants access to and request access. So I have set up some training accounts and I'm going to flip over. Can everybody see a sign in dialog box instead of the other CalTrap?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I set up Training Dude 1, who is a staff member who has received an ArcGIS account and now wants to get into our staging LA version. So Training Dude 1 is going to log in, and this will be the first time that this person logs in. And I think my login timed out. I set this up. Okay, Training Dude 1 has logged in for the first time and receives a security question and answer. Let me show that there are multiple security questions that they can choose. So we'll set up our answer, click OK. And CalTrap displays that they want to access that person's ArcGIS account. They would approve it. And immediately, CalTrap knows this was a first-time user, and it displays a request access form. So at this point, Training Dude 1 cannot get any farther than this form. They cannot, even though they can see the map behind them, they can't do anything with this version of CalTrap. So the employee ID is per county or per CDFA rules. So I'll just enter anything here. The user ID was already assigned as the ArcGIS user ID, so we cannot, the requester cannot change it and a supervisor cannot change it. Nobody can change it. That goes for the email as well. So Training Dude 1 is going to ask for field staff role and wants to be assigned to the West Station. Then send the request. And the user is told that their request is pending. So that was the staff member's view. I'm going to now flip over back to our administrator view and what we would see after that request was successfully submitted. So I'm going to go to Manage Users. And because I'm expecting that request to be in my queue, I'm going to click on Approve Permissions. And there's Training Dude 1 waiting for me to grant or deny access. I'm going to select that staff member. I see everything they entered, the role that they requested, and I can either approve or reject it. In this case, I'm going to approve. So that person has disappeared from the queue because that was a queue for requests only, but that person is now a staff member. For example, if I wanted to assign a vehicle, well, we should see training dude 1 here. But we'll research that. At any point, the staff member is now on staff and should be able to be assigned. So I'll take that as an outstanding item to confirm that. But getting back to manage users. So there's another way that a person can request access to a county's CalTrap, and that is to be added by a supervisor. So if you're the supervisor and you click Add User, you must already have the ArcGIS account user ID for your staff member. So you need their user ID and their email, and they have to give it to you and give you permission. But I have also set up training dudette 1. And I know this because she gave me her user ID and email. And I know that her employee ID is 49. And this is an email address that I set up. This is also a good point to mention that when each staff member requests an ArcGIS Online account, they must have their own email. There can be no shared email addresses when requesting ArcGIS Online accounts. So therefore, there can be no shared email addresses in CalTrap at all. It causes unknown problems. So we have their email, their user ID, a role of field staff, and we'll go to the West Station. And we have added that user without that person ever submitting a request form like the previous staff member did. Looks like CalTrap is still thinking. Okay, we've looked at add user, approve permissions, modifying a user. We can, let's change an employee ID. This person, and that user is now modified. If we look it up again, we see the new employee ID. Let's take a look at removing a user. Here's our training dude 1 and training dudette 1. Let's go ahead and remove training dude 1. Are you sure? Yes. And training dude 1 is no longer in the list. So we do have a user guide that explains user management in more detail. It also has the links that you would use to publish to your trainees as you get ready to train. And it's, like I said, it's a little bit of a confusing topic, but we're here to support you on this and all the training issues and guide you through this again if you have more questions. Let me do a quick check. Are we good on questions? See. Okay, so that wraps up the demo portion of the webinar. We will move into your training effort, but let me just open it up. Are there any questions about CalTrap Administrator and how it relates to the iPad app? Just check for questions. Okay. I'm just going to show you this slide on some of the main reasons, some of the context that you need for what we're doing in the Administrator app and the parallels into the Trapper's iPad app. So when a Trapper starts their day, they must download the CalTrap data to their iPad, and this includes the routes and vehicles that you have assigned to them, coming from the Administrator app. On the iPad app, the Trapper can only download one route at a time. And since we get a lot of questions about data plans and the offline use of iPads in the field, we wanted to make a note that CDFA will reimburse for data plan costs, but counties must provide for data plans in their current budgets. Back to the iPad Trapper app, they can switch routes if they have a data connection along the route, or they can go back to the office and switch routes there. They have to be assigned to that route, though, in order for that to happen. At the end of the day, trappers have to acknowledge their work with their digital signature, and this replaces their paper signature on the daily trapping summary, and it is legally binding. So they do that on their iPad app, but the relationship back to administrator is that from within the administrator app, the supervisor would need to print that out and review it. And also, we mentioned earlier, if a trapper switches vehicles during the day, you have to make sure that they're assigned to the new vehicle in CalTrap. So that's a link between the iPad app and the administrator app as well. If you're unable to assign a vehicle midday, ask the trapper to add this event to their comments on the daily trapping summary. Okay, so those are just a few of the notes. And when we do the iPad app training in January, we'll get into all the relationships. These are just kind of some major points. So do we have any questions so far? Let me just make sure everyone's okay. So Qua had, and so unanswered, I think at this point, Amber, once an ArcGIS account has been created, it stays with them regardless of where they are. Oh, Qua's got that. Okay. Let me move to JJ. Will seasonal trappers need CDFA email account to access iPad? They will need their own account, JJ. You can use a Yahoo or a Gmail account, any free mail account. It just has to be separate. Qua, are you weighing in on whether it needs to be an actual CDFA domain email account?
No, it does not have to be a CDFA account, but I think this is something Ray is working on, where there is a way to get seasonal employees CDFA accounts. Before there was something with pricing with CDFA where it would cost per account, but I think they now have I guess I don't want to say universal, but like a group policy. So I think they can issue more accounts without affecting cost in any way. That's what I last heard, but we can double check with Ray on that later. But I think from here on out, seasonal trappers for CDFA should be able to get CDFA email accounts.
Great. Thanks a bunch, Qua.
One thing you can help me with, Bonnie, is if you can go back to the CalTrap admin app on Chrome.
Yes.
And if we go to manage users real quick
Uh-huh.
and modify user,
Yes.
and just select someone, just the first one, Alberto Alfonso is fine. And then scroll down. I think it was Amber. Um, let's see, Amber, Dan, and Cassandra. So there was a handful of questions regarding CDFA staff switching or working between one county and another, and what rights did they have to be able to move across counties in that way. So if can you go to station, Bonnie, and click the pull down menu. Um, for the most part, if you select the whole county, you will be able to work in that particular county. But I think if your role, go up to role and make yourself a, yeah, yeah, I don't, it's a combination of things. So you need to not only make yourself a manager, but on the account side, you also need to be an administrator. And then you would have almost something like global rights. And then that way you could move between counties. But for the time being, if you're registered as a field staff or as a trapper, you will not be able to do that.
Yes, and let me add that uh, the counties that you want access to, you need their URLs, and you would log into each county and request access to that county, and it would be granted. So as long as you have your ArcGIS account and the county URL for each county that you would be working in, you should be able to get access to all of them.
Okay, that's it.
Okay. Okay, so thank you everyone for hanging in there. We're getting towards the last portion of starting your training programs in your districts. So let's jump in. Okay, we have on this slide determined who in what district will be training, and I think we have a couple updates from here. So if you don't see your name, please let me know. We had a couple changes due to COVID in the last day or two as well. But for each of the 5 CDFA PDP districts, we have these persons listed as trainers. All right. So your training schedule, we want to help you get started. And we also want to say from the very beginning, we know that this training effort is a very large effort. It's going to take coordination. It's going to take timing and county staff availability, resources that you'll need to distribute. So at the beginning of this conversation, I want to say that we are here to support you. We are planning a weekly trainer meeting so that all of us can gather and ask questions, share training experiences, improve the experience for yourself and your trainees, and also be there during the week by email and phone so that you have everything you need to do your training. So, getting to the slide, your training schedule depends on resource availability. So as Yvonne and I were planning for today's webinar, we were doing preparation activities such as getting viewers created, which is the name for the CalTrap administrator app that we were just looking at. There is a viewer for each county that's required, and we were looking at the staging viewer in LA County. So viewers are in progress for the whole state. So as you start thinking about and planning your training effort, just know that you'll be in touch with Yvonne and I about the viewer progress and the viewers for your counties and whether they're up and ready for training yet. But we do have other resources like this training sandbox if needed. So there will be viewer creations for the administrator app, and then separately for the second component of CalTrap, we need an app build for each county as well. This is a separate app build. So those are also in progress for the whole state and following a certain pace. So you'll need to be in touch with Yvonne and I about that as well. But since you haven't been trained on the iPad app yet, you'll see that in January. Don't worry about the iPad app build at just the moment. So this is an awareness. All right. So planning your training and how to schedule it. Our priorities for training are fruit fly detection first. If you have time, you can train on EGVM and other programs, but we are laser focused on fruit fly detection in order to get this out statewide. And then we have these counties that will have viewers soon. In fact, some of these counties have viewers already today, and we will send an email to you so that you can have access to these viewers and start logging in and creating surveys and routes and motor pools and asking questions of us as you needed. You get to practice. These will actually be county viewers that can go live at a certain point, but you will be able to go in there and just create a way, and all the data will be wiped in mid-February. So you'll have a training practice ground, and then each of these counties will actually have their viewers ready to go on a certain date. So today, I can tell you that we have San Diego ready to go, Santa Clara is on its way, Orange is ready to go, Ventura is on its way, Madera is ready today, and Sacramento is ready today. So when you think about the districts that you're in, all 5 districts are just about ready to go. The Bay Area district, Santa Clara, we should have that ready today. Sacramento is available in the Sacramento district. Madera is ready in the Fresno district. Orange and San Diego are ready in the Southern district. And LA has been up and running in the Southern Coastal district for quite a while. And we have Ventura in progress. So behind the scenes, we do have developers creating these viewers. And after these 14, we will continue rolling out with the remaining counties. So, but back up to dates for planning your training. Once these, all 14 of these viewers have been created, we are hoping to have your training completed in your districts for the administrator app by January 31st. So that's a little over 5 weeks from now. So again, I'll reiterate that we're here to support you, make sure you're 100% confident in the material. And if you need help scheduling webinars and setting up users and confirming viewers, we're here to help. Okay, so once we train on these 14 counties, other counties will be coming online with their viewers, and we would like to have all counties trained in the state by March 15th. So that would be another 6 weeks after the first 14 counties. That was a lot there. Do we have any questions to start there with schedules for training? Okay, I don't see any questions just yet, but we will be publishing our contact information at the bottom if you are saving any questions. let's take a look at the resources that you will have for training in your districts. We will be providing to you the copy of this slide deck and the user guides and instructions for setting up the ArcGIS account, including the link to the request page. So we will email all of that to you, including the URLs to the county in your district where you can begin logging in and practicing. As you plan for your training, it's okay to group counties together, especially a lot of the smaller ones for training. Go ahead and play around with the app until you're comfortable and do whatever you need to do. We will wipe the data by February 15th, but we will coordinate that with you so that no one's taken by surprise. But at that point, after the data is wiped, counties would want to begin creating their real surveys and routes and motor pool and all that data in preparation for the iPad use in the field. Also a note about COVID-19, it just continues to affect everyone. Things change, sometimes by the hour. We realized that a number of the counties will not be able to do ride-along training, which would be the most effective for iPad training when you get to it, but we're trying to work with what we have. So perhaps in our weekly meeting for trainers, we can cross-pollinate with ideas on that, but Yvonne and I have resources to help you with that as well. And once you're done training, you want to encourage counties to create their surveys and routes and motor pools as soon as their viewer is available and all of the training data has been wiped. Again, I'll just reiterate, we'll conduct a weekly support call to give you a status on viewer and app creation for each county and answer your questions and get feedback on your training experience. Any questions so far? Looks like questions have been handled. Okay. So steps for successful administrator training. This is courtesy of Qua and what he has experienced in LA County, getting a large county with lots of staff up and running. Primarily, we want to ensure that the user account setup is complete. So that means identifying everyone in your counties that will be supervisors and trappers, initially the supervisors for the administrator app, and publish the link and get them going on requesting an ArcGIS account. So the way that the account creation is working in the background is that folks go out to this link, request their account, and then all of those account requests are sort of batched up for the 15th and 30th of each month. So our user account manager, Mauricio, will go out and get the whole set of people who have requested accounts by the 15th and create their accounts, and those people will get their confirmation emails. And then he'll do it again on the 30th. So that's an important point to know when you're planning your training. You want to publish the link probably at least a week before the 15th or the 30th, depending on your training date. Make sure folks have enough time to request their accounts. And this is the same link that you used before our session today. So then after user account setup, conduct your training on the administrator app, and then immediately work with the counties to set up their routes and surveys and resolve issues. Because this is a statewide deployment and we have experience with this large LA County, we have not deployed in smaller counties. Well, technically we did last year with a beta version of CalTrap, but we have not deployed this version of CalTrap in smaller counties. So it's important to get the support data entered into the viewer and get questions answered in preparation for the launch in the spring. All right, so we're coming to the end here. Let's just review our next steps. Go ahead and watch the training videos at caltrapinfo.com/training if you haven't already. If you could provide feedback on the videos, any questions that were not answered or any items that were confusing. We'd also like to hear feedback on your experience training with the administrator app as you get rocking and rolling with that. Do we have any feedback on the training videos at this point? Okay, well, we'll just review that week to week. So let me get back to the slide here. Again, we'll train you on the iPad app in January. And then after that, your schedule for training your counties on the iPad app will be TBD. So begin training your district on the administrator app as soon as you're comfortable and have all the tools you need, including the viewer for each county that you need and the user accounts. And then please attend our weekly support call for CalTrap trainers, and we will send an invite. You haven't seen that yet. And one last opportunity for questions regarding anything we've looked at in this webinar. Okay. Let me just show you. Yvonne Fell and I will be the main training contacts as you get started. So you will receive this slide deck with our contact info, and you can email us, call us, or shoot us a text at these numbers. And that is the end of our presentation. So before I close out, let me open it up to Ray, Kwa, and Yvonne if they want to add any other points to this training presentation.
Hi, everyone, and Bonnie. Yeah, I just have one simple point, and that is I know we've seen this application, at least the administrative version, before, and there are a lot of similarities that do carry over. I think the bigger difference would be the iPad application, and so there will definitely be more questions there. However, I think the takeaway, looking at the larger picture, is that Bonnie, Yvonne, myself, and Ray, and everyone has been kind of living and breathing this application for at least a few years now. So we do know the ins and outs of it for the most part, and sometimes we, may kind of skim over something that may seem obvious to us because we've been kind of dealing with it day in and day out. But as you are kind of going over the app for the first time, or maybe you've been rusty because you haven't been looking at it, day to day, please let us know. I mean, I think the feedback is so valuable in that sense. And if there are certain considerations, if your counties have a need for a certain feature or an enhancement of the application, let us know that too, so that we can take it into consideration when we were designing the app, or making updates and things like that. I think the last time I was down in San Diego and we gathered a lot of CDFA folks, um, in a given day, I think that day was maybe like 6 or 7 hours of training. I had so many questions that were asked that I learned so much that I came back and I was like, you know what, if we were gonna redesign this, there were other considerations that I had to make, and I'm hoping that this version will address at least 80 to 90% of the scenarios that are out there. There will be certain use edge cases that might be particular for your county. And I think we've made the application flexible enough so that it can be customizable for your county specifically. So yeah, all that feedback is I'm grateful for, and I'm hoping to hear from everyone soon.
Thank you, Kwa. Any other comments?
This is Ray. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I just wanted to add, I understand this is going to be a big ask for all of you, and it's going to be a lot of work. And I appreciate your efforts on this. I understand some of the work we typically will be doing over the next few months will probably have to be put on the back burner to accomplish this. And I think that's just what we'll need to do to get this very important program rolled out. So I appreciate everyone's participation and your participation in the future.
Great. Thank you, Ray. I see one last question. Jean, do you go by Jean or Jeannie about charging time? Oh, Qua got it. No, Ray's going to get it. Ray, I'm not sure if you're able to see the chat box.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, the answer will be yes. We want to charge this to CalTrap on the Mac X's.
Thank you, Ray.
Just for everyone knows, this will be charged to the unclaimed gas tax fund for the time being.
Okay. So thank you everybody for hanging in here. If you have additional questions, you can send them to myself or Yvonne. And be on the lookout for a weekly meeting invite starting in January. In the meantime, we'll send you some training materials and we'll be on hand for questions. Please, everybody, stay safe, stay warm. Hope you have a peaceful, fulfilling holiday season. And thanks again for what you're doing. Okay, I'm going to end the meeting now. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Yeah, thanks, Bunny.
Sure.